Everybody, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition. I'm your host, Matt Connarton. And what's the date today? It's the 22nd, April 22nd, 2015. Whose birthday? Earth Day. Oh, Earth Day. It's the gentleman in the control room says it's Earth Day. I didn't know, I stopped paying attention to Earth Day a long time ago. Yeah. I don't know if the general populace pays attention to Earth Day. Yes. Recycling, of course. I'm actually really bad about recycling. I don't know how many of you, if you've ever seen the show, well, it's called something other than this, but it's BS is the PG version of the title. It's I think it used to run, I don't think it's on anymore. It used to run on HBO or Showtime, hosted by Penn and Teller. And they would take different topic each week, and they would talk about how it's BS. Because it's on HBO, they could use the actual word that we can't say in this instance. But they did an episode, and I've only seen a handful of episodes of the show. It's really good, but they did an episode about recycling, and kind of concluded that recycling is BS. So for those of you out there who think that I'm some radical left-wing liberal, I would argue that there are many things that disqualify me from liberalism, and one of them is I've really never much given a crap about recycling. So there you go. Although I do believe in climate change, so maybe that swings me right back to the left. Don't get me wrong. The argument that the right makes that it's all just a giant conspiracy between liberals and scientists to destroy capitalism. Powerful argument, I guess, but I don't really buy it. I think climate change is real. Anyway, but welcome to the show. And housekeeping really, really quick. It's funny, I was talking about recycling because sometimes housekeeping and, spring cleaning and all that involves throwing things away. But we're not throwing things away around here. We're moving things. So I'm not going to make the whole announcement all over again, just really, really quick. We only have a few more shows for the radio edition of Unleashed on DKRN.FM. At the end of the month, we're moving to ohmtimesradio.com, or actually the radio station, it's ohmtimes.com/IOM. That's going to be starting the first week of April. So we'll continue to be on IPM Nation, but the radio edition of this show will be moving Ohm Times Radio. They've got a global listenership, very, very big deal. They have acquired DKRN.FM, and happy to say again that the radio edition of this show was part of the package. So we're going with them. And it's really going to expand our listener base a lot, and I think generate a lot of publicity for the show, etc. So very excited about that. Just want to remind everybody, because that's coming right up. Does not affect the television edition of the show or the Sunday night version that is IPM Nation exclusive, but it does affect the Tuesday and Thursday night version of the radio edition. And you'll always be able to get the show through IPM Nation, but to be able to go to Ohm Times is very, very exciting. So wanted to mention that. Also, too, I'll plug our guest for tomorrow night. No guest today, I'm flying solo, but tomorrow night on the radio edition, Jen Coffey and I will be talking with Sharon Presley. She's an author, and she's a very, very interesting person. If you don't know who she is, look her up. Really, really looking forward to that conversation. I know Jen is as well. So a lot of good stuff going. One other thing, too, I can't really offer any details about this yet, but I will be able to by next week. There is a phone app coming for IPM Nation. People ask me about it all the time. IPMNation.com is, in and of itself, very mobile friendly. And there is a mobile player on there for our live 24/7 radio stream. But we are going to have an actual app because there's just been a lot of questions about it. Why don't you guys have an app? And then I tell people, well, the site's really mobile friendly. We don't really need an app. And they say, yeah, but you should have an app. And it's like, okay, we'll give you an app. So that's coming. All right, lot to get into. By the way, well, it's one of those situations where there's so much I want to talk about that it's almost hard to pick. Really quick, actually, we'll start with this because, being here in New Hampshire, first in the nation primary, we have a lot of folks coming through who want to be president, or in the case of Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio, want to be, and I don't have any water. I deliberately did not bring any water to break myself of the habit because I did retire the water gulping gimmick last week officially. I do have a bottle of diet soda here, but that doesn't count. So it's just not the same. So no more. I said it and I meant it, and it's hard. I really, when I mention Marco Rubio's name, I really just want to, as awkwardly as possible, gulp water on camera. And if you want to see me doing that, feel free to check the archives. We do archive all the shows at IPM Nation. But Hillary was in the state. Was it yesterday or the day before? There's reports of she was rushing around trying to be as quick and expedient as possible. The motorcade was doing 90 on the highway, whatever. There were people who were disappointed. They were at campaign events. They were hoping to get a few minutes with the former ambassador and were denied because she was in such a hurry, in and out, no time to talk. And some people are really disappointed. We talked about that a little bit on Unleashed last night, so I'm just bringing it up again. But I kind of had a thought. If you are someone who is a Hillary Clinton supporter, or even if you're not a Hillary Clinton supporter and you're just really disappointed, maybe you're one of the folks who was there waiting to get a moment, 15 seconds with Hillary Clinton just to tell her what's on your mind and what your concerns are as a voter. If you really think about it, if you really stop and think about it, why do you care? And the reason I ask is this. If you think about it logically, what could you possibly say to Hillary Clinton that is going to make her sincerely consider your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns? If you do get a few seconds with her to just tell her what you're concerned about as a voter, what is she going to look at you and say? Well, I share your concern about that and blah, blah, blah and all this. Yeah, she probably will. But does it actually mean anything? Look, the only people she ultimately is going to listen to seriously are her donors. We have a for-profit system of government in this country. And, that's all that matters is what the donors want. It's basically legalized bribery. That's how our federal government runs. So I don't want to rain on anybody's parade who's really excited to talk to these candidates. And it is one of the great things about being in New Hampshire, especially if you're a political junkie like me, getting access to these people and whatnot. And they do visit the state a lot, which also is great for the local economy too. But really, in the end, does it matter? If you were standing there and you're standing there in the rain and you really want to talk to Hillary and you're denied that opportunity, what have you actually lost? Unless you're one of those people who just really gets excited about meeting anyone famous, and a lot of people are like that. But really, what have you lost? What great thing would a President Hillary Clinton have done if only you had those few seconds to tell her what you, as a voter, as a constituent, are concerned about? And and I'm not saying that just to dump on Hillary. I'm saying that to dump on all of them. I was at I wasn't there for too long. I couldn't stay the whole 2 days, but the Republicans had at the Crown Plaza Hotel in Nashua there, the Leadership Summit. Is that what it was called, I think? And, I was there for a little bit of that and listening to speeches and whatnot. And, then I see a story, which I'm not going to get to because it really doesn't matter. But I saw something online, a story about how, all these candidates, yeah, they were there to speak at the Leadership Summit to the people who went, but they also had their secret meetings with donors also at the hotel. And it's like, yeah, of course they did, because that's who really counts. That's who they're really there to speak to. They're not there to speak to the voters, the constituents, or, they are kind of groveling to try to get the support of, for example, obviously while I was there, I saw a lot of people who are active in the New Hampshire State Republican Party, a lot of legislators and former legislators and so forth. Of course, because they want those endorsements and that support and et cetera. So they give their speeches where they basically don't say anything. It's just a lot of applause lines, a lot of pandering. The only one, and in fairness, I didn't hear every speech because I was not there the whole weekend. I could not be. But Congressman Peter King actually, his speech was interesting, and I don't think he's running. I think he was just there to talk, but because he, I don't agree with a lot of things he says, or his positions, but he probably because he's not actually running for anything. He had the nerve to get up there in his speech and gave a very energetic speech and said some things that crowd, frankly, did not want to hear. But he was the only one. The rest of them, they get up, they say whatever. They're just looking for applause lines, and it's a lot of glad handing and pandering, and it's pretty pointless and boring. Speaking of boring, I know there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm behind her, but Carly Fiorina, wow. Very difficult to stay awake during that. I could not listen to her whole speech. Not a dynamic speaker. A lot of these people aren't. And I know it shouldn't be so much about the dynamism of how they speak, but rather the substance of what they say. But again, there is no substance to most of these speeches. It's just pandering to the crowd. And in terms of delivery, it was nappy time. Wow, that was a hard one to sit through. And I didn't sit through the whole thing. But, again, ultimately, they don't care. I know people get excited. I don't mean to be so cynical, but I can't help it. It's like, I really want to tell this candidate what I think. And it's like, guess what? They don't care. You know how they decide what to think? It's donors, the people who they really work for, and it's polls. What does the polling data say? What does the polling data say should be my position so that I am suitable for election? That's all they give a crap about. They don't care about you. That's why we got to start electing more independents and get ourselves away from the two-party system, which brings me, by the way, to what I wanted to talk about first, because this is on HuffPost, written by Maxwell Strachan. Too many Americans treat politics just like another sport, and it's causing problems. This went up this morning. The reason this caught my eye is because I have often said, and if you're a regular viewer or listener, you've heard me say it 1,000 times, that one of the problems with the two-party system, and it's one of the many reasons why I'm an independent, is because the two parties treat it like a team sport. It's all about beating the other guys, always, always. And you see this play out in all kinds of ways in Washington. It's part of the reason there's gridlock. Not that all gridlock is bad. Some gridlock is good. It prevents bad laws from being made. Some gridlock is bad. It prevents good laws from being made or from bad laws from being repealed. It's like a team sport. It's all red versus blue, us versus them, skins versus shirts, whatever. And that's all it is. And it's all about power and influence, and we got to beat the other guy. That's how they treat it. Nobody's interested in solving problems. Certainly nobody's interested in compromise, which you often have to do to solve problems pragmatically. It's all about, they treat it like a team sport. So at least the politicians do. But according to this story, so do the voters, and which I guess we kind of already knew that too. Let me read this. It's short. America's favorite sports in some order: football, baseball, basketball, politics. A recent study has found that a significant percentage of Americans with partisan leanings care more about their political party winning an election, or maybe more accurately, beating the other party, than about seeing the policies that their party supports put into law. And that goes for Democrats and Republicans alike. Now, I've been saying this for years. Let me stop right there. I haven't used the term in a while, but I talk about PIG, which is an acronym, Partisan Ideological Groupthink. And this is one of the byproducts of the two-party system. On too many issues, people, whether they serve in office or whether they're voters, decide what to think, decide what their positions are on particular issues based on whatever the herd that they've chosen to run with thinks. For example, you'll often hear people speaking about the economy who have no idea anything about the economy, have never even taken an economics class, but they think that they know a lot about the economy and how the economy works. And they do that because members of whichever party affiliation they've chosen will speak in these sound bites and bumper sticker phrases about the economy. And so these individuals then say, okay, well, I guess that's what I think too. And that's how, it's the same thing you see with religion. It's the exact same concept, with organized religion. Most people, not all, some people convert. Some people who used to be atheists become religious. Some people who used to be religious become atheists. But most people, whatever they believe, whatever particular belief system they buy into religiously, whether they're Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, whatever, they believe what they believe because from the moment they came into the world, that's what mommy and daddy told them to believe. This is what we believe. Our particular religious belief system is the one true path to heaven, and everyone else is wrong. And we just somehow magically know this. And you see that same thing with politics. That's why it tends to be, if you were raised in a liberal home, you'll be an adult with a lot of liberal viewpoints and thoughts and ideas, etc. If you were raised in a conservative home, same thing. Your people are very influenced by the people around them in terms of values and ideas and whatnot. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's just human nature. But in politics, as in religion, a certain what I call an ideological laziness takes hold, where people become completely closed off to any outside information or anything that challenges their own viewpoints. And it's very, very dangerous. That's why, people will gravitate toward media that supports their already pre-existing views. That's why Republicans will, some, not all, I want to be very careful about generalizing, but some Republicans, they'll only watch Fox News and they'll only listen to conservative talk radio. That's why some Democrats, some liberals will only watch MSNBC and, they'll only read Huffington Post, not to knock HuffPost. I love HuffPost, but people put themselves in these ideological bubbles where they're very comfortable. And then if you try to present them with any new information, it's like, oh, no, that's scary. That challenges what I've already been believing all these years. And again, that's not everybody. That's not everyone who's a Republican or a Democrat, but that is a lot of them. And it's one of the problems, and I call it PIG, partisan ideological groupthink, because it lulls people into just a lack of curiosity and an ideological laziness. And it's one of the things I hate about the two-party system. Back to the article. The researchers looked at survey data from the 2010 Cooperative Congressional Election Study for the paper Red and Blue States of Mind, Partisan Hostility and Voting in the United States. Within that paper, they found 41% of people with strong partisan feelings said, listen to this, said winning was more important than what the victory would actually mean for society. Let me read that again. 41% of people with strong partisan feelings said winning was more important than what the victory would actually mean for society, while 35% said particular policies were a more important factor. So 41 to 35, that's a little scary. I wish I were surprised. The other 24% valued both equally and had no real opinion. In other words, a lot of Americans view politics more as just another sport than as a selection process by which we choose the men and women who will decide the rules that govern so many aspects of our daily lives. Earlier studies have already found that Americans view politics as something resembling a sport. But this study went one step further, uncovering evidence that hate for the other side of the political aisle often isn't so much based on opposing values and political positions, but on loyalty to the party itself. We've talked about that too, how sometimes people of one party seem to decide on a position, no matter how absurd or bizarre it is, simply based on wanting to be the opposite of the other side. We've seen this with the, I know my Republican friends will get mad at me for using this example, but I'm sorry, we've seen this play out a lot with the Obama administration, where there are things that you would think there could be compromise and common ground on, where the Republicans just won't budge at all and are against absolutely everything this guy says. They... Well, we don't want to get too far into the weeds with that, but even something like Cuba, you would think that normalizing relations with this country, who it does us no good to not be an active trade partner with them, et cetera. You've got Republicans calling Obama an appeaser or whatever for actually wanting to reach some sort of an agreement with Cuba after decades of, I've heard Republicans on many, many occasions say it makes sense to do something positive and constructive in terms of Cuba. But then as soon as the Obama administration says, yeah, we're actually going to do that, all of a sudden all these Republicans are like, oh, this is terrible. Even Marco Rubio, Cuban-American Marco Rubio is like, oh, this is terrible. He's selling us all out, and Obama and his agenda and blah, 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 blah. And again, there's examples in the other direction too. I'm an independent, so I pick on everybody, but that is a pretty glaring. I mean, we've seen this a lot throughout the Obama presidency. All these judgeships that are still not getting confirmed this far into the administration in federal circuit courts. Open seats on these courts because Republicans don't want to don't want to confirm anybody Obama puts up for nomination. We have never seen that to this extent than we are currently seeing with this administration, where this far, I mean, look, we're talking about 2016. The Obama administration's almost over, and there are still these seats in federal circuit courts that have gone unfilled all this time because Republicans won't confirm anybody the Obama administration puts forth. We've never seen anything like that. And the debt ceiling issue, my God, but I don't want to go off on that because I'll rant about that for the rest of the show. Okay. In essence, Democrats and Republicans hate one another for the same reason Los Angeles Lakers fans and Boston Celtics fans despise one another. Not because of the values the other holds, but simply because they are supporters of the rival team. Patrick Miller, a co-author of the study and assistant professor of political science at the University of Kansas, said in a release, quote, "Too many partisans are saying, my side is good, the other side is evil. We have to go beat them. There are rivals like Kansas or Missouri, Duke or North Carolina. And that sense of animosity and demonization is really motivating average partisans to participate in politics much more so than issues or ideology," unquote. This is problematic, especially in a representative democracy, based on the idea of civilly discussing the issues of the day with one another. The idea that so many Americans view politics with an us versus them mentality and without significant regard for what us and them really want appears to be leading to some issues. From an accompanying press release out of the University of Kansas, the press release said this: 38% of partisans agreed with their their parties should use any tactics necessary to win elections and issue debates. When those who agreed with this view were asked what tactics they had in mind, the most common ones they offered were voter suppression, stealing or cheating in elections, physical violence and threats against the other party, lying, personal attacks on opponents, not allowing the other party to speak, and using the filibuster to gridlock Congress. Democrats and Republicans were equally likely to express this opinion. All right, catch that. Roughly 2/5 of the nation appears to be all right with voter suppression, cheating, lying, and violence or something similar just to help out their party's political chances. 2/5 are willing to threaten the roots of American democracy for the sake of winning, and what they're winning doesn't exactly matter. Asked whether the rivalry could have developed out of underlying philosophical differences born early on, Miller said it's possible, but not a real excuse for the state of animosity that exists today. Miller told HuffPost, quote, "How we feel about some of the issues can help create that sense of rivalry. But once that sense of rivalry is created, it really takes on a life of its own." This is not what the founding fathers were hoping for when we set this baby up more than 200 years ago. We're supposed to hash things out like adults and find points of compromise, not consider inflicting violence upon one another in the name of getting a political candidate on stage to dance to some 70s rock icon's anthem for a night. Or as Miller more rationally put it, quote, "We're not thinking about politics in the way that most founders wanted, which is to think about issues, be open to compromise, and not be attached to parties. We're looking at politics through a simplistic partisan view in which we think our side is good and their side is bad," unquote. It hasn't always been this intense, which I think most of us who've followed politics for a long time are aware. In fact, as recently as a decade ago, the country was significantly less divided by political party than it is today. A 2014 report out of the Pew Research Center found that the two parties are now much more ideologically consistent, meaning they adhere to the party line much more than they did in 1994 or even 2004. This growing divide between Democrats and Republicans can be seen every day. It's the conversations between two talking heads yelling and no one listening on TV. You see that a lot in cable news, certainly. Or the political ads that are heavy on narratives and short on policies. You see that constantly. Or your uncle who doesn't like that one political candidate, not because of his stance on regressive tax policies, but because he doesn't like his look, you know? Miller said, quote, "What is the consequence of today's polarized politics? What's motivating partisans to vote in this climate? For too many of them, it's not high-minded, good government issue-based goals. It's, I hate the other party, I'm going to go out and we're going to beat them. That's troubling," unquote. Red and Blue States of Mind was co-authored with Pamela Johnson Conover, a distinguished professor of political science at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It was published in the peer-reviewed Political Research Quarterly. And you see this... it mentioned the hatred, the language that partisans use when talking about each other in the macro too. You heard that stuff. I mean, I certainly heard that stuff when I was a kid, but it's gotten much worse over the years. Republicans talk about Democrats like they're really all just socialists who want the government doing absolutely everything. And Obama is a secret Muslim Kenyan terrorist whose real goal is to destroy America. And of course, you hear Democrats talk about Republicans like they only care about rich people and, well, sometimes legislatively that seems like there might be some truth to that. But anyway, the point is you see that constant demonization on both sides in both directions, and it's very, very unhealthy. And a lot of it is driven by partisan, ideological groupthink. We will move on because, like I said, there's a lot I want to get to, and I'm trying to be... I was having a hard time, though, resisting that side rant about the debt ceiling. This is very, very important. According to the Associated Press, a new report, this came out April 19th, the Department of Justice and the FBI acknowledge flawed testimony. Let me read the article first, and then you'll see why I wanted to do this, because it relates to one of the hot-button issues that I discuss so frequently on the show. The Justice Department and FBI have formally acknowledged that nearly every examiner in the FBI laboratory's microscopic hair comparison unit gave flawed testimony in almost all trials in which they offered evidence against criminal defendants over more than a 2-decade period from 2000, the Washington Post reported. 26 of the 28 examiners overstated forensic matches in ways that favored prosecutors in more than 95% of the 268 trials reviewed so far, the Post reported Saturday, citing information from the National Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers and the Innocence Project. The organizations are assisting the government with the post-conviction review of questioned forensic evidence and provided the statistics under an agreement with the government to release results after the review of the first 200 convictions, the Post reported. The cases include those of 32 defendants sentenced to death. There you go. I'm sure you figured it out already. Obviously, anyone who's been watching or listening for a while knows I loathe the death penalty, state-sponsored execution. It absolutely must go, and from time to time, we see another glaring example, a common sense, obvious example of why the state must not be allowed to execute people. Because even if you absolutely believe that the punishment should fit the crime, and if you commit a murder in cold blood, then you deserve to be murdered by the state. Even if you can justify that, which that in and of itself, if it were a perfect system, maybe you could justify that. But even if you honestly believe that, even if you're firm in that belief, you also must acknowledge that government is not perfect. To my pro-death penalty friends, who happen to be conservatives. Part of what's endemic in conservative thinking is that you don't trust government, right? That's why, libertarians don't trust government either, but most libertarians I talk to oppose the death penalty. And more conservatives are also coming over to the side of opposing the death penalty. We've seen some real progress in this area, but a lot of conservatives still love the death penalty, think it's a great thing. And yet, if you are a conservative, chances are you don't trust government. So why is it you trust government with this? Something as important as deciding who lives and who dies. Oh, they never get that wrong. But unfortunately, there's lots and lots and lots of statistical data that shows, yeah, they get it wrong quite a bit. So the cases include those of 32 defendants sentenced to death. Of those, 14 have been executed or died in prison. The Post reported in a story posted on its website. Again, for those of you who love the death penalty, let me just reiterate that. Of the 32 defendants, 14 have been executed or died in prison. Feel good about that? The FBI errors alone do not mean that there was not other evidence of a convict's guilt, the Post said. Defendants and federal and state prosecutors in 46 states and the District of Columbia are being notified to determine whether there are grounds for appeals, according to the newspaper. 4 defendants were previously exonerated. In a statement released to the Post, the FBI and Justice Department vowed to continue to devote resources to address all cases and said they are, quote, committed to ensuring that affected defendants are notified of past errors and that justice is done in every instance. The department and the FBI are also committed to ensuring the accuracy of future hair analysis as well as the application of all disciplines of forensic science, unquote. The FBI is waiting to complete all reviews to assess causes, but has acknowledged that hair examiners until 2012 lacked written standards defining scientifically appropriate and erroneous ways to explain results in court, the Post said. Oh my God, wow. It sounds like, in other words, the system isn't perfect. Wow, who knew? Well, now that we know this, maybe we can get rid of the death penalty. The Bureau expects this year to complete similar standards for testimony and lab reports for 19 forensic disciplines, the newspaper said. Federal authorities launched the investigation in 2012 after the Post reported that flawed forensic hair matches might have led to convictions of hundreds of potentially innocent people since the 1970s, typically for murder, rape, and other violent crimes nationwide. Unreal. The review confirmed that FBI experts systematically testified to the near certainty of matches of crime scene hairs to defendants, backing their claims by citing incomplete or misleading statistics drawn from their casework, the Post reported. In reality, according to the newspaper, there is no accepted research on how often hair from different people may appear the same. Since 2000, the lab has used visual hair comparison to rule out someone as a possible source of hair or in combination with more accurate DNA testing. And by the way, so often too, the people who are still pro-death penalty, I hear this crap about, well, the system, everything's gotten a lot better because now, we have DNA testing and we have all this science and all these ways of making sure that we're convicting the right people. More than a little naive way of looking at it, I think. I mean, come on. And, even if that were true, and there is truth in that. Obviously, the science has advanced quite a bit over the decades, certainly with DNA evidence and all that. Absolutely, of course. I'm not arguing against that. But the way these people just so black and white, they say, well, the science has advanced so much, so now we don't have to worry about it. And that's just naive and stupid. And by the way, what about all the people who've been sitting on death row all this time? Even if today somebody came up with some sort of magic way to make sure that there was never a false conviction ever again, a foolproof way to be absolutely certain every time, that's still, what about the people who've already been convicted, who are already sitting in prison waiting to go to the gas chamber? What about them? So you can't just say, well, everything's good now. Science has fixed it and whatever. Don't worry about it. You can't say that. It doesn't make sense. It's immoral. Especially these conservative Christians that love the death penalty. Wow. Do you really think Christ would approve? Oh, why am I bothering? You don't give a crap about what Christ thought. Christians don't care. They actively spit in the face of everything Christ tried to tell anybody all the time. Not all of them. I'm generalizing. I'm sorry. I just get really frustrated. This is, and if you're a longtime viewer or listener, you know, it's probably my number one hot button issue is the death penalty and all the twisted logic and hypocrisy on the side of the pro-death penalty people. It just infuriates me. Not all Christians are what I call ironic Christians. Ironic Christians, of course, are my term for the people who call themselves Christians, go through the motions of Christianity, going to church and all that, while actively trying to have as little to do with anything Christ ever said. You know, the ironic Christians are the ones who condemn people and want to ostracize people who aren't like them and who, well, are pro-death penalty, because I cannot imagine Christ would approve of that. Those are the ironic Christians. So, but not all Christians are ironic Christians. I'm tempted to say most, but I won't. I'm not going to put a percentage on it. It kind of feels like most of them, though, sometimes. I don't know. It probably is most of them. But I'm not saying for sure. I don't know. Maybe it's only 5% of them. I don't know. Maybe the rest of them actually are interested in Christianity. What was it Gandhi said? Christianity is a great idea. I wish somebody would try it. I mean, I'm paraphrasing. That's not an exact quote, but I think Gandhi was onto something there. I'd like to see somebody try it. Be fascinating. What a wonderful experiment that would be for Christians to be, interested in, things that Christ said. Because I don't think Christ said, those gay people are going to hell. That's what they hyper-focus on, after all. Okay, moving on. Because, wow, I'm actually surprised at how efficiently I'm getting through these issues. That's unlike me. This is another thing, I talk a lot on the show about, I say, a phrase I use a lot is follow the money. And I kind of mentioned that at the beginning. This relates to what I opened with, actually, talking about, really, if you do get some FaceTime or you get to bend the ear of one of these candidates, Republican or Democrat, in the end, what's it matter? They don't care what you think or what your concerns are. What really matters is what the polling data tells them they have to care about, and of course, what their donors want them to care about. Those are the two factors that matter. What you and I think, nobody gives a crap. And I'm often reminded of, Jesse Ventura said something great once that, all these people should be required to wear NASCAR suits where, they've got patches all over them that show who owns them, who donates to their campaigns. So you know who they really work for. So I saw this pop up this morning. This is from HuffPost. Paul Blumenthal writes, the Chamber of Commerce is fighting fiercely to stop the scourge of corporate transparency. Because in the era that we live in, this is truly the information age, and with the internet and of course all sorts of alternative media, because corporate media, is corporate media, but it's becoming easier to find out, not always accurately. You've always got to be careful about your sources where you get this stuff, but it's becoming easier to get access to certain information and to find out who's really running things. This spring, shareholders in more than 100 companies will introduce resolutions calling for greater disclosure of corporations' political and lobbying activity. 6 major companies, Dean Foods, Eastman Chemical, H&R Block, Marathon Oil, U.S. Steel, and Valero Energy, have already reached agreement with New York State Comptroller Thomas DiNapoli, who oversees the third largest pension fund in the nation, to adopt political spending disclosure policies in exchange for the comptroller's office withdrawing its resolutions. Interesting. But don't consider that a sign that corporate America is learning to live with transparency. Over the past 2 years, 3 of the usual suspects, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and the National Association of Manufacturers, have joined together to try to discredit the purpose of disclosure policies and advocates calling for them. Aided by the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, the 3 big business groups have sought to undercut activist investors and pro-disclosure groups through public campaigns and private meetings with corporate executives. Chamber President Tom Donahue put the argument succinctly at a December conference, quote, "They say it's about transparency. That's a laugh. The ultimate goal is to ban all corporate political speech and lobbying spending," unquote. The anti-disclosure campaign has particularly targeted the nonprofit Center for Political Accountability. The center publishes the annual CPA Zicklin Index of Corporate Political Accountability and Disclosure, which ranks major corporations on their political spending and disclosure policies. Judging from their efforts to discredit it, the business lobby groups see a major threat in such a political evaluation of their members' support for transparency. In April 2013, the three groups sent their first joint letter to executives at Fortune 500 companies, warning them about shareholders presenting disclosure resolutions. Quote, "The activist goal is to limit or remove altogether the business voice from the political and policy-making process," unquote, the missive stated. Another letter was sent in October 2013 with a more detailed warning. Quote, "Some unions, environmentalists, public pension fund managers, and other political activists coordinating with the Center for Political Accountability have engaged in a campaign with two goals: convince corporate America that, one, investors desire disclosure of political and policy expenditures, and two, most corporations themselves are agreeing to greater disclosure of these expenditures," unquote. Since then, the Chamber of Commerce has retained the services of former Securities and Exchange Commissioners Paul Atkins and Kathleen Casey, now with Potomac Global Partners, to further spread the word about the allegedly nefarious motives of those seeking corporate political disclosure. In 2014, the Potomac consultants presented the Chamber's case to a committee of the Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association and at the annual meetings of the National Investor Relations Institute and the National Association of Corporate Directors. Now, I want to stop here for a moment. There's a little bit more to this article, but the Chamber of Commerce retained the services, it says here, of two former secretaries and exchange commissioners, Paul Atkins and Kathleen Casey. That is something, too, that we see a lot of, is people who used to work for the government, bureaucrats. You know, look, it's not just legislators. It's not just Congress. It's, who make policy and who make laws. I mean, they make laws, but a lot of policy, a lot of the bureaucracy itself is controlled by non-elected people who are appointed or just given jobs working within the bureaucracy, who then eventually leave and go to the private sector for a whole lot of money. Now, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with that. You should be free as an American to work wherever you want, wherever you're offered a job. And if you're working for the government one day, in theory, if you're working for the government one day, and then somebody in the private sector offers you a job for more money, you should have the freedom to be able to say, okay, I quit, I'm going to go work here, and do that. But just be aware that this happens constantly, and it would be naive to assume that there's no consequence to any of that. You know what I mean? Because you don't just see it with bureaucrats, appointed bureaucrats. You also see it with, you see it a lot with people who used to be in Congress, who, just a random example, one of tons of examples, Eric Cantor, when he was primaried out of his seat in the Senate, he went to work for a lobbying firm making like 10 times what he was making as a congressman, as a senator. I'm sorry, a congressman in his case. So, it's not hard to figure out that if someone knows that there are certain entities within the private sector that might be interested in employing them for a whole lot of money while they're still, they know this while they're still sitting within the bureaucracy in the seat they were appointed to, might that affect one's decision-making if you know that the decisions you make may directly affect your future big money job prospects when you go into the private sector? I mean, again, on the one sense, in theory, you should be able to just go take whatever job you're offered if you're offered a job and you want it. I'm not suggesting there should be a law against that, But I'm not so sure I would be opposed to it either. I don't know, because, come on, there is an obvious conflict of interest there. I don't know exactly how you resolve it. I'm not suggesting that I have a solution to that. Because, again, while I'm not comfortable with what obviously happens in the current scenario, while that's pretty bad, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with legislatively telling someone that, I don't know, what would you do? Would you tell them they have to work in government for the rest of their lives? They can't ever take a job in the private sector? I don't know. I mean, you can't do that. That's not practical. So I honestly don't know what the solution is. I'm not presenting a solution here. I'm just saying it's a problem. And that's illustrated in this article, even though this article is not what that's about. There's a little bit more to this, but that's okay. I mean, you get the idea. This is, if you do want to check out the entire article, again, it's up on HuffPost today. Paul Blumenthal is the author, and the title is "The Chamber of Commerce is Fighting Fiercely to Stop the Scourge of Corporate Transparency." So it's great that they have something to fight against. You know, I'm glad that that they feel threatened, because the fact that they feel threatened means that there is a threat. You know, I don't hear too many people arguing against transparency publicly or directly, because it's a very difficult argument to make. You know, the argument that the voters, the constituents, have no right to know who we're talking to and who we're taking money from and everything. Very, very difficult argument to make. The fight on the left is brewing. We got a little bit of time left. I've been saying for what seems like years, it probably has been years, that wouldn't it be interesting if we see on the Democratic side some of the factioning, some of the fissures that we see in the Republican side with the various factions of the Republican Party. And I've been predicting that we would start to see some of that as the 2016 campaign gets underway. You know, you've got a lot of people on the left who don't trust Hillary. They view her as really a corporate Democrat and certainly a bit of a neocon in terms of foreign policy. So, you know, we're already seeing a lot of that bubbling under the surface. And there's also a fight on the left now over Obama's trade policy. He's really upset his own party here. I'll read this quickly. Harry Reid and Elizabeth Warren say they're in the hell no camp of Democrats eager to defy Obama over his support for a trade deal with Pacific Rim nations. The president returned fire Tuesday, arguing that Warren is wrong and that members of his party and advocacy groups that oppose the pending pact as a job killer are lobbying political objections not supported by the facts. The Democratic Party's trade rift, simmering for decades and fanned by economic angst and misgivings about the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, which was enacted in 1993 after a huge push at the outset of President Clinton's administration, has drifted out of the Capitol and onto the 2016 campaign trail. Republicans, whose votes Obama needs for a trade accord, are chortling over Democrats' intra-party disagreements. They are also on alert to Hillary Clinton's heightened caution about trade now that she's seeking the presidency and is acutely conscious of her party's progressive wing. On Friday, her campaign issued a statement saying she would wait and evaluate any trade pact when it was completed. In her book, Hard Choices, highlighting her achievements as Obama's Secretary of State, Clinton conceded costs as well as benefits attached to international trade and globalization. But she concentrated on the benefits, noting that she and Obama, as 2008 primary rivals, each vowed to pursue smarter, fairer deals to benefit the U.S. economy. We won't get into this whole thing because you can read the rest of it if you want to. Again, this is on HuffPost. Alexis Simondinger is the author, but they're fighting. There's a lot of infighting on the left over this over the trade agreement, and whenever Elizabeth Warren picks a fight with the Obama administration, I feel like it in a sense, Obama, and not that it should really matter to him, he's sort of being forced to act as a proxy for Hillary. I just kind of feel like when Warren or her supporters attack Obama as they are over this trade agreement, they're really sort of attacking Hillary. There's this implicit sort of, look, this is the kind of thing that Hillary wants to do, and this is why those of you who are on the left, the liberal wing, the truly liberal wing of the Democratic Party, why you should be concerned that Hillary Clinton clearly is no liberal, because this is an example of how Obama clearly is no liberal. Now, we can argue, of course, that's a separate conversation we don't have time for about whether or not Obama is a liberal. It kind of depends on what issue you're looking at. You know, on this issue, he clearly is not. He's not a liberal on trade. He's not a liberal, I would say, in terms of foreign policy and some other things. In terms of it's too much to get into now. We only have a few minutes left, but I think that you know, regardless of how this plays out, because I think Obama is going to get his way on this, but I think ultimately Hillary will be affected one way or another. Really quick, because we are almost out of time. This is a short article, but it's kind of fun. This was from Politico. Hillary Clinton can't run for president by Jack Schaefer. So she's pushed her whole campaign into the slow lane. My friend Matt Parkett, hi Matt, if you're watching, he sent me this, and I thought this was kind of interesting. And it's relatively brief. We'll get through it quickly. But it's kind of an interesting, it's just interesting. An interesting take on Hillary's campaign. Thousands have run for president, but only one candidate has ever unrun for the office, Hillary Clinton. Ever since she finally announced her entry into the contest a couple of weeks ago, she has been unrunning with ferocity. First, she road-tripped a minivan 1,000 miles from New York to Iowa to listen. Listening tours are supposed to add a little fabric softener to a politician's starchy image, buffing the scaly reptilian exteriors down to kid leather smoothness. The technique worked for Clinton in New York, where booking upstate listening stops helped her win a Senate seat in 2000. Listening is the epitome of unrunning, allowing a candidate to do nothing at all but remain operational. Today, Clinton is listening in New Hampshire. This went up yesterday. And a full-time physician has been assigned to her care, lest the pure calm of bland political chit-chat turn her life signs negative as she unruns herself to death. Why is Clinton unrunning? If the race for the Democratic Party's presidential nomination were a Little League baseball game, the party would have already recognized Clinton's insurmountable lead and invoked the mercy rule to give the victory to her. By unrunning, she avoids the intense political debate that would only call attention to her underfunded, unannounced, and relatively unknown rivals, Martin O'Malley, Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee, and Joe Biden, all of whom are unrunning at various paces. With 9 months until the first presidential primary, Clinton can't afford to actively run for president. Indeed, if she had her druthers, she probably wouldn't even be unrunning for president. She was pressured by the constant press attention about what she was going to do, when she was going to announce, and the email controversy. That sort of press attention was positive media attention she couldn't control, and only by announcing could she dial it down. The email controversy was negative media attention she couldn't control without the attention-deflecting machinery of a campaign. Indeed, she may be the first politician who announced for the presidency in order to decrease attention in her candidacy. She succeeded wildly. Her coffees, roundtables, discussions, and spontaneous meetings with voters have immersed her campaign into a box of dry ice and slowed it to the lowest metabolic levels. Suspended animation would look vigorous compared to what Clinton is now doing. This is smart. Steady coverage on the inside of newspapers is exactly what she wants. I buy that Team Clinton stalwart Donna Brazile recently told BuzzFeed's Ruby Kramer about the campaign's pacing. There's a rhythm. She's starting off like Beethoven, with melodies and chords that people understand, but she's got to end up like Beyonce. Except to my ears, Clinton sounds more like a hobbled version of the Beatles' Within You Without You than Beethoven. Actively running for president at this point would be too politically damaging for Clinton. By actively running, she would have to declare herself for or against the current administration, something she doesn't want to do until it presents some advantage. By unrunning, she can blend passively into the background, where she can be there but not be there. Depending on how suggestible the audience that is listening with her, Clinton unrunning looks like a continuation of the Clinton and Obama legacy without explicitly saying so. Having gotten what they wished for, an unofficial Clinton candidacy, the press must now cover Clinton 2016 slow lane as best they can. The press already knows almost everything about her, and she's not going to voluntarily serve any fresh meat. So reporters and editors will have to go to the freezer and the landfills where her past is stored. That's one reason behind the press excitement over Peter Schweitzer's Clinton Cash, the untold story of how and why foreign governments and businesses helped make Bill and Hillary rich. Even if there's nothing damning in the book, reporters can grind out hundreds of column inches on the subject and make it relevant to the campaign. The only alternative until the campaign awakens from dormancy will be profiles of the 24-year-old staff wizards, I'm sure they exist, who are vitalizing the Clinton campaign. I shudder. What should ordinarily follow unrunning would be running, but that won't be possible for Clinton. Until the 2016 campaign boiler room fires up with an identity of its own, she'll be unrunning her 2008 campaign, necessitating yet another transition in her candidacy. According to Politico's Glenn Thrush, the Clinton campaign plans to spend more time generating calm and less time fighting the press than it did in 2008. We've got plenty of time to come up with a snazzy phrase to describe the new, yet to be released, Clinton method. But until we come up with a winner, how about unrerunning? So I thought that was kind of fun, so I wanted to read that to you. We're about out of time. One quick thought on that, by the way. You know what I'm most interested to see happen is if Hillary is in fact challenged from the left and one of these candidates ends up getting some traction, how is Bill Clinton going to handle it? How will he react publicly? In 2008, when Obama emerged as a serious threat to the Clinton candidacy, Bill Clinton, in more than one occasion, was caught behaving rather angrily in public. There was that infamous call with NPR, where he got really angry. There were some others. Clinton was clearly pretty upset over Obama coming in and stealing the show because he thought that his wife was in fact the heir to the throne, and she turned out not to be. How is he going to handle it this time? Because tell you one thing, we got a sitting vice president who in theory has the advantage of incumbency. I'm talking about Joe Biden. Whether you want to take him seriously or not, in theory, according to how this usually goes, he should be the guy running for the Democratic nomination. And yet all the focus is on her. What if he finds a way to emerge from the shadows and mount a serious threat? And he is someone who can fill that void, challenge her from the left. He absolutely is a classic Northeastern liberal. He absolutely can challenge her from the left. He might be the guy that people on the left, the liberals who think Clinton is too much of a moderate, he might be the one they get behind. Wouldn't that be fascinating? And how is Bill Clinton going to react and handle that? That's it. We're out of time. Join us tomorrow night for the radio edition of Unleashed, 9 p.m. Eastern on IPM Nation and DKRN.FM. Sharon Presley and I will be our guest, and Jen Coffey and I will be chatting with her for the hour. And that's it for now. Today's show, if you're watching live, it'll be up online by 10 p.m. tonight, and I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Thanks.